I think opening your own business is not as straightforward as I'm just going to get a shop, put some chairs in it and crack on.
I had one shop and I walked away from it. I walked away because I didn't enjoy being a business owner.
The bigger the machine, the bigger the balls you're juggling. You know, I'll open my own shop and I'll be able to do what I want. I'll be able to be really creative. The problem is that you are swamped.
I had to move out my flat because I couldn't afford it. You've got to be prepared for the nights where you're lying in bed thinking, oh my God, how the hell am I going to pay that guy's wages on Friday? And it's Thursday.
To be fair, you more than anyone is to blame for this, because
Probably.
your Instagram has convinced guys that actually your barber should be able to make you look slimmer, make your hair look thicker, make you look more handsome.
I never say that. I never say that.
But that's
not something I always do.
Hi, welcome to the Noble Barber podcast. I'm Anthony Laban, and we'll be talking to various people in the industry who've made it and their journey and how they got here. Talking honest, cutting through the crap, and making sure your story and their story is heard to help your business and hopefully mine. If you haven't already, please hit the subscribe button, and I hope you enjoy this episode.
Welcome to another episode of The Noble Barber. I'm Anthony Laban. We're here today in King's Cross. Thank you very much. In this fantastic site. I'm here with Dan Gregory and Joe Mills, obviously at Joe Mills' place, Wolf. And thank you very much for the space. Thanks for coming.
You're welcome. Thank you.
I want to kick us off, really. I've got two guys that are in depth and inbred into the business part of our industry. Would you recommend it to barbers coming in?
Come on, Joe.
Shall we start with that?
I
You've got
think
my experience.
We've got so many wanting to start their businesses. Would you recommend?
I think you have to love what you do to go into the industry. You can come into the industry and you know it might be a random decision to go and train to be a barber. I think opening your own business is not as straightforward as I'm just going to get a shop, put some chairs in it and crack on. Would I recommend it? I think working for yourself, if you've got the knowledge, the support fundamentally, and the know-how, then opening your own business in any industry makes sense. But there's a lot of caveats in that.
Yeah,
How do you feel
couldn't
about
agree
it?
more. Yeah, I think I think the difference, say, with my opinion on it is that Joe's still living it. Joe's got this wonderful space with a team of people. You've had a lot of shops over the years. I had one shop and I walked away from it. I walked away because I didn't enjoy being a business owner. And what I mean by that is I was led into this. I had this world of fairies and snowflakes, right? Of that, you get your own shop. That's the ultimate goal. You get your own shop, and then everything runs smoothly. Every single person you employ loves it as much as you. It's just not the case. No one's ever going to love it as much as you.
Yeah, agreed.
It's just also, a job still.
It should be kind of a bit of a natural progression, though. Do you know what I mean? It always felt to me like I worked, I got trained, I became someone, I became I became a barber, I did my work, I became a hairdresser, I knew what I was doing, I built my clientele. And I just felt the way I wanted to go, I'd kind of established a thought process. I didn't agree with the way my boss was running his company. I couldn't find a company I wanted to work for. So it felt like I had nothing else to do but open my own. And it felt like a real transitional thing. I'd grown into it. Mm-hmm. I'm with you. I had no experience as to what shitstorm was actually coming my way as a business owner. It strikes me now, though, there are more people going into business with your attitude than your attitude.
Yeah, I agree. I think historically, lots of people went into the hair and barbering industries, and you worked your way up through a team of people. You either wanted to earn more, you wanted more freedom, and this is, I'm going back pre-COVID, a long way, but pre-COVID. And the natural progression was that I'll go and open my own shop and then I'll create my own brand and my name will be above the door.
Yeah.
And I think now it's not driven in the same way. I think now it's more that, I think especially in the barbering industry, that people think, fuck, I'm just going to go and open my own barbers. I can do it myself. That may only have a year's experience on the shop floor.
Yeah.
So, they found a small space near their house or, maybe regionally, and I don't think I don't think the attitude that I had when I got into it, and I didn't really have a choice. I'd got to the end of my career working for somebody else, and similar, thought I could do it better myself, and I knew that there was an opportunity, so I took that opportunity. Learned the hard way over the years, and it's never been easy, and it's still not easy. But I think now a lot of people are going into it thinking it is easy, and not understanding what it really means to be an owner, leader, mentor, all of those things, because that all comes under the banner of having your own business.
Which felt like part of that journey that was happening before you went into it.
Yeah,
I mean,
it's
we've both come out of business as well, and obviously you are a business owner, but in a different
way.
sphere now.
Yeah, definitely. I think I had a similar thing to Joe as well. My shop happened because of necessity, not luxury. I had an unfortunate end to a shop that I worked in, and I had all these clients, and I worked out if I made this amount of money every year, so I can find the rent that's a third of that, I'll open my own shop. I had nowhere to go. I was basically unemployed. That's what ended up happening to me. So I found a space that was cheap enough that it wasn't cheap, but I could afford it, and I went into business that way. But I think, like you touched on before, a lot of people are coming out of their education. They're working somewhere for a year. They feel that they can do it better than the person they're working for, and then they open a shop. And I've always been the firm believer that you should always work in a few different places beforehand, because you learn all the other person's mistakes that you can then take away and not do when you get a shop. And I felt like I did that. I had the shop for 5 years. I didn't shut it down because we failed. Yep. I closed it down on my own accord, which I'm proud of. It did feel like I was going to walk into Sound International in the October and be like, oh my God, there's Danny, failed. but it did feel like a failure in some ways, but I felt like I did all right in a sense that I stopped doing what my first boss did, and my second boss did, my third boss did, and my fourth boss did. And I done everything that way. But then I had a lot of flaws that I couldn't see because I was naive, and obviously there was an ego to it because I had a business. And I just think the problems we're going to probably start seeing in a few years' time is you're going to start with the influx of barbershops right now, is you're going to see a lot of these really good talented people being swamped by owning the business. Yep. And their creativity will drown with that as well. Because like you said, you've got to be a mentor, you've got to be the business owner, you've got to also be the boss, which we touched on when we were chatting beforehand. Yep. You've got to be able to, you can't be their friend at the same time as being the boss. And I feel like that's when you haven't got that experience of working in place or even managing a place, that's when you can really let yourself down and let the company down if you can't be the boss as well as being a friend.
Well, I think we do that. I mean, I think as at our core, we are hairdressers or barbers. That's we're business people secondary to that, I think.
Yeah,
I would say probably third.
Yeah. And so it's really hard to separate that and not kind of be too close to the staff. And it hurts when it goes wrong. It really, I've certainly found it personally painful when I've had that either an end of an employment situation or a parting of the ways with someone or closing my store down.
Yeah, definitely.
I think there's the young group that are coming through, whether it's having their own business from a chair rental, being in one of the rental work spaces. Yeah. It's still setting up their business.
And I don't want to sound like some grumpy old man who's sitting there going, "Oh, back in my day." But I do think that, look, anyone can open up any business. I'm not saying that they shouldn't do it, and I don't think any of us feel that. I think that understanding, I never studied business. No. I never knew anything. Fortunately, my first business back in '98, I didn't have the money, and I took on an investor who run businesses. So he oversaw a lot of the accountancy stuff, and all I had to do was cut hair and make it good. But I felt like I worked for somebody else. Yeah. So I had to get him out. And then when I got him out, I felt that I had the freedom, but with that, I had the stress. And the bigger the machine, the bigger the balls you're juggling. Mm-hmm. I remember talking to a friend of mine, and he was saying to me about business, and I was going, it's just the size of balls you juggle. They just get bigger. And, in some respects, the bigger the organisation, the more support you have, the more people you can employ, but then the more the responsibility is, the more the liability is.
Yeah.
And I think that, it's a kind of catch-22 that, you want, I'll open my own shop and I'll be able to do what I want. I'll be able to be really creative. But going back to what you were saying, Dan, the problem is that you are swamped. And, I'm fortunate that I've managed to find space to be able to do lots of different things in my working life.
Yeah.
Which keeps me at 56 this year, excited about what we do and the industry we're in. But, it's taken a lot of time and effort to be able to make that space work for me that I inhabit. And I think that if you're opening a shop and you're worried about your payroll, you're worried about your rent, your rates, all you're worried about is how many clients I can churn out through my shop. And fundamentally, our business is, except when we touch on retail, our business is driven by turnover, bums on seats, and it's service related. We're not selling, it's not like a clothing shop where you can, if two people don't turn up, well, I'll just sell, other people can sell the jeans. If half your team are off ill, you're gonna be the one that's carrying the can. And I think that responsibility gets downplayed until you're actually in it. And you actually sit there, looking at, if you're in a position where you get a profit and loss report, or you look at the turnover and you know what you need to hit each week, and it's Friday evening and you're £1,000 out, you've got to find that grand the next day.
Yeah.
It's on you.
Yeah.
You can try and encourage your team, but fundamentally, I think, that kind of, going to bed at night and I don't think I've had any working of having my own businesses and working for myself that I've not had moments in any year where I haven't been, crikey, this is going to be a bit tight, or this is close. And I think that comes with the territory.
Yeah,
and I've got nothing. I don't object to that, but I think that unless you actually live it, it's very difficult to see from the outside what it's really like.
Definitely, it's the freedom as well. I think a lot of people are under the impression, and there's a lot of positives about owning a business as well. There's 100% positives, right? But I think that freedom element that people go, I'm gonna have my own shop, I can do what I want. You can't. I was more poor and more stressed and had little freedom when I had my own shop than I've ever had. I went from being employed on a really good salary to earning 10 grand a year. I had to move out my flat because I couldn't afford it. I had no holidays. I had to cancel holidays that were already booked because I couldn't afford it. And I always remember my wife saying to me, if you leave that shop for a week, it will not burn down. But I was like, but I can't leave it for a week because I can't afford not to leave it for a week. My outgoings are 19 grand a month. I can't do that. So I can't take a wage until that's paid. And I think that's the downside of when you've worked for a year and you've seen all the great things about your job, and then you see what your boss is doing, and then you go, I'm going to open the same. You've got to be prepared for the nights where you're lying in bed thinking, oh my God, how the hell am I going to pay that guy's wages on Friday? And it's Thursday. We haven't even made 800
And
quid
almost
today,
every business owner I've spoken to knows that they're the ones that are paid last.
Yeah.
They're the ones whose mortgages will bounce. They're the ones that have to convince their landlord that they will pay the rent next week, and because you can't default on paying wages. You can't you can't not pay the team.
And I don't think that's unique to our industry. There's a guy on Instagram, I don't know, I can't remember his name, but he's a young kid, he's American. He goes up to entrepreneurs and says, have you ever been broke?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I've seen that, yeah.
So he goes up he'll see a guy pull up in a roller, goes over and goes, hi, I do a YouTube channel. And he goes, can I have 1 minute advice, business advice? And I don't think I've ever seen one guy he's spoken to that isn't self-made.
Yeah.
And all of them are like, I've lost businesses. I have been bankrupt. I've lost everything and I've rebuilt.
Yeah.
And he's fortunate he's speaking to the people that have rebuilt and not the people that haven't. There is a struggle. And if you're employed by somebody, like I said, no matter what industry it is, your responsibilities are your job. You have to turn up. You have to do the things. You have to do what you're paid to do. The onus of pressure on you is to perform within that zone. As a business owner, the onus of pressure is vast.
Yeah.
And that, and in honesty, I think if you talk to anyone who's a business owner or had a business, and if I'm honest, I think sometimes I live at a permanent stress level of 8 to 9 out of 10. And that's normal. When if you talk to anyone who's not in your world, they go, seriously? And you're like, yeah. And occasionally I peak at 11.
Yeah. Well, I can vouch for that, and I'm sure you can, because I remember when I did close, I remember I had a 2-week gap from when I closed down Man-Made to when I joined the Hunter Collective, right, and went freelance.
Yeah.
And I remember, right, I had a good mate of mine working for me, which can be a good thing and a bad thing, right? And there'd be days where he might not turn up for work, right? But he's a good mate, and I understood why. I remember the first Thursday when I was freelance, looking at the clock at 10 o'clock and going, oh no, I don't have to worry about that anymore.
Yeah.
And it felt like I had normal stresses like everyone else. I had, the bus was late today. That's my stress. The train was delayed. That's it. I didn't have all the million stresses that no one could relate to. And I think that was the hardest bit about it, was that nobody could relate to it. Even my closest friends, family, they couldn't understand why I'd lie there. And I'd say to them, it's like my own baby though. And what we mean by that is it makes you cry. You love it. It keeps you up at night. You've got to feed it. You know what I mean? All these things, it is genuine like a baby.
Yeah. Exactly.
And unless you've had that experience, it's hard to portray that to someone. And you don't want to burst the dreams, because I had a guy in the chair whose friend has just finished college. He's working in a shop now, but he wants to open his own. And I said, don't. And I said, I'm not going to try and piss on this parade here. I'm just saying don't. I'm saying gain more experience first. Find out what the problems can be before you go and do it, because it's not for everyone. And
equally, not only find out what the problems are, but find out the boss you want to be.
Yeah.
And also, it's no point opening, and I think that one of the people that are successful do something slightly differently. The service they do is the service they do. Like we all cut hair.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter how you want to dress it up, whether you're a £10 barber or a £200 barber, you cut hair. That's what you do. So what do you want your shop to be? What do you want your brand to be? All of those things are more important now than ever, because, post-internet and social media, you relied on your catchment area in a phone book.
Yeah.
Now, everything you do is projected out.
Yeah.
Now, if you don't know, if you've only worked in one shop or you've worked in two shops, do you have a real strong identity about who you are, what you want to be, and what your story is? Now, as much as my business life has been exceptionally stressful at times, I wouldn't change it. I wouldn't not have it. I'm really glad of the journey and the people that I've interacted with throughout the 30 years of having businesses. But I think what's most important is I knew what I wanted when I started. I knew that when I opened the Lounge Soho, that I knew what it had to be. It had to be somewhere everyone could hang out. That's why it's called the Lounge.
That was iconic.
Yeah,
the Lounge.
thank you.
Yeah,
it had to be boutique. We had sponsorship deals. I mean, in '98, we were, the first to really break into that kind of world. I knew that before I started it. It's the same with anything I've done. I know what I want it to be.
Yeah.
But I guess that's it. You've got that vision. You've got that idea comes into your head as to where you want. I mean, that's where it's always been for me, where I want to work.
Yeah.
I struggle to find somewhere. Maybe it's because I'm a belligerent git. Maybe when I was that bit younger. I mean, I started my first business when I was 22.
Yeah.
So I'm older than both of you. I've been through the world twice.
Yeah.
I got to do loads of firsts. Ours was the first store that added beauty in. Ours was the first store that had a standalone coffee shop. Ours was the first that had an absolute retail store.
Yeah.
Whereas 10, 15 years later, you'd walk round and see Tony and Guy and see Rush and see Charles Worthington. They all had these spaces and so on.
Yeah.
So you have these, and now with mine, my whole idea 10, 12 years ago was boutique. I knew I wanted to do something that was really intimate.
How do you do that in today's generation, though? If you think of barbers now, a lot of them all look like, they all look very similar. They've got the same kind of lighting, the same floor, and I wouldn't say the carbon copies because they all do different things, right? But how can you do something different in this generation now when it's pretty much all being done in some ways?
But then I guess there's a circle that things that haven't been done for a while will become more interesting. What
you've got to take that hit straight
what
away.
We do have is what this burst has done, I think, has created a really demanding male client. Which we never used to have.
Gotcha.
Guys, I mean, before I opened up my barbershop, I had a handful of guys that came in to have their hair cut with me, and that was it. And they really didn't want a great deal of consultation. They just trusted me to do what I did, and that was that. and they come to me because the missus told them to. And
Yeah.
the demand now, the guys, the variety, the wants of a clientele now is what's driving us much more than the shops, don't you think?
But what's interesting is that, when I grew up, I grew up out of London in a small seaside town, a bit going to the barber, I went to the barber shop with my dad. And then I got to about 12, 13, and I went to the unisex salon, salon called Image, because I had a wedge and highlights and,
I used to go on called Images, had my hair bleached in the day. Yeah.
Exactly. So, what you're now seeing is that, and obviously barbering didn't reinvent itself, but it got the credit for the skill set that it is. Everyone was, Vidal Sassoon won't use, or Tony and Guy never used clippers. It was all scissor over comb. And then they wanted to learn how to, So there's been a massive shift in the industry, and it's really positive.
Yeah, definitely.
Whether you want to get deep into education and, different courses and stuff like that. But fundamentally, barbering as an industry has transformed in the last 10 years.
Oh, massively.
Easily.
Massively.
The upside of that is that there's a lot of scope, going back to your question, Dan, there's a lot of scope for within a big area of what your business is within that. And going back to what you were saying, Alan, that what clients want has changed as well, and they are prepared to pay for it.
Yeah.
There is definitely an expectation that if I'm going to pay X, Y, and Z, I'm going to get a shampoo, a hot towel, a nice 100%. Beverage. That is the requirement on top of banging service
haircut,
and then a great haircut. Yeah. It's not just about, there was one of your podcasts I was listening to over Christmas. It's not just about the haircut, and that's what so many people forget. You could be a really, really talented barber, have shocking communication skills, be in an environment that's filthy and that clients don't want to be in. It don't matter how great your haircut is.
Yeah.
And equally, you can be an average haircutter and barber, and it's argumentative. We all like to think we're the best, but am I the best? Am I the best at skin fades? No, I've got other people here that are way better than me. I'm really good at what I do.
Yeah, that's it.
And part of what I do is the service, is the consultation, is all of those things. And that is, I think, is as important in barbering now as the quality of the haircut.
Yeah. Do you think that is basically what I get most of my clients from, is the consultation? I get people I do virtual consultations with people in the States and Australia. They'll pay me to sit and talk to them on Zoom about what.
I speak to so many people who their only experience of consultation, barbers, is you. I mean, the amount of barbers that I speak to, it's really nice now. Thank you all very much. But I do bump into barbers constantly who clock me and talk to me, which is brilliant.
Do you know what's
but
so
the amount of them
strange?
just say, Dan, I didn't know how to consult. It wasn't even part of that. Whereas for me, coming up through the salon, it was always more than the haircut.
Yeah.
It was always 2 or 3 hairdressers who weren't the greatest hairdressers, whose clients would be queuing up and booking up just because the atmosphere around them, the aura that went with them.
Yeah.
And that's why I think we've had the celebrity hairdresser. I'm not sure we're at the point of celebrity barber. I think in the industry we now recognise people, but I don't know if the public yet have clocked that. Do you think we've got to that stage yet?
You're talking Nicky Clark within the hairdressing world.
I think if you went up to hairdressers, people, there would be and asked a member of the public to name a hairdresser. There would be a hairdresser they would name.
Yeah.
I don't know. Would they come up with a barber?
I don't think that's because of the barbering industry per se. I think it's because if you watch Lorraine, if you watch This Morning, I was on This Morning about 10 years ago. I did a makeover, and they called me a celebrity to the stars, right? What did they call me? Stylist to the stars. But I never said that. I never told them that. I didn't. They asked me, did I do any celebrities? I said, yeah, a handful. And they titled me that, right? But I think if you were... What the thing is with the celebrity stylist thing is that they will do men and women. So you'll get like Jamie Stevens on there, right? And he'll do a male makeover and a female makeover.
Right.
Yeah.
So they're not going to get barbers in to do, because we don't do both, essentially. Yeah. So I think until that starts getting separated and you end up going down a male specific person for men's hair and then a female specific person for female, or you get what I mean in that category, then the celebrity barber can appear. But I think I think you can be famous off Instagram now, and you can be called a celebrity now. So I don't. That word for me is thrown around way too much. I would never, ever in a million
No,
years.
I'm only bringing it up because it is that,
I know what you mean.
it is that level of
interesting,
status. And the one thing out of all the podcasts that we've done and the amount of people I've spoken to, the one bit I always seem to come back to, and you just started nudging around it, was pricing and the cost, the value across the country. And, okay, maybe not rurally, but where you're talking about cities and the expense of rents and buildings.
Yeah.
The cost that we put to a haircut never seems to quite match up to salons. We were talking about Berwick Street earlier. I walked down Berwick Street the other week, and there was one hairdresser's down there that was outstripping every single barber shop. And you've got some real name barbers in Berwick Street.
Yeah.
Charging £7-8 more.
Yeah.
Advertised in their window. I can guarantee those would have been the worst men's haircuts on that street.
Yeah.
But they're very confident to charge more. I'm lost. I've always been lost that when Luke Dolan came on and said, with VAT, you've got to be 45, 50, £60 a haircut.
Oh my God, I saw the response
It was
to that.
carnage for the poor lad.
I know.
And we seem to think that's insane that blokes would pay that.
Do you know,
I think we have...
I think you. I touched on this on a talk that you were around, and what we need to change within the industry is what we are worth per hour. So you have to sit there and you go, like, so you touched earlier that you're going to do some podcasts in Essex with Wes. I had a conversation with Wes recently, and we were talking about how you value your time. And basically, we were talking about it, and I was talking about, I had some work done on my car, and basically I was paying £120 an hour for a skilled car mechanic to do a particular job on my car, right? And and that's the cost is the cost. That's what his hourly rate is. Now, if you then say, well, okay, well I do 2 haircuts in an hour, okay, so that's 2 £60 haircuts. He may have only, if you look at someone like, I don't know, like me, I've been cutting hair since I was 16 and I'm 56. So at what point is my hourly rate not worth £100, £200, £300?
Yeah.
At what point do you, if you've gone through an apprenticeship or an education program, you're working on the shop floor, you're fully booked, and you're charging, I'm going to get hung for this, I know I am, and you're charging £25 for a haircut. And let's say you do a wash and cut, and you do it in 45 minutes, and it's £25, £35, £45, £15, wherever you see your price point. Okay, you are capped in the amount of money you can earn by the amount of hours and the amount of time you can do that. And that is capped over 5 days a week if you're going to work 5 days a week, over 48 weeks a year because you have 4 weeks holiday. And you are holding yourself back. If you doubled your, I had this conversation with someone who works with me the other week. If you're fully booked and you've got clients queuing up for you to cut their hair, and you charge whatever you charge, if you doubled your prices, doubled them, and lost 50% of your clients, you're making the same money doing. You could do an hour haircuts instead of half an hour.
I say that all the time. That is the advice I get because whenever people will message me and go, "How do I charge more?" And I'm like, "Well,
same question all the time.
You get all the time. Even I don't know if anyone uses Booksy. I use Booksy, right? I get a message every month going, "You are fully booked this month. Put your prices up." I even get a message on Booksy saying that, right? Now,
there are
it's
other
easy.
booking systems available.
There are other booking systems available. They're not a sponsor of the video.
We're not sponsored by
them. Not sponsored, no. But it just as a comparison,
but I
right?
think that's exactly right.
Yeah, but at the end of the day, okay, the reason why, if you walk down any high street or you look at any car park, there are beaten up old bangers, and then there's a Lambo or a Porsche there.
Yeah.
People will make their own choices. If you only want to charge £25 for a haircut, great.
That's of course,
But what is surprising, I think, is that if you give people the opportunity, and this will come back to retail because I'll be banging on about this in the retail conversation. If you give people the opportunity, it's up to them to make their mind up if they're going to spend it.
Yeah.
You don't go into a restaurant with a blind menu.
No.
You don't go into a restaurant, you look at a menu and you go, "Oh yeah, can I have the T-bone, stuff like that?" And you order it, and at the end they get given a bill.
Yeah.
You know when you go in, but even before you go in, if you look online or you look outside the store, am I prepared to
know
pay
what you're
that for
dropping.
that?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And if you're, or you know what, I can afford to eat there, but I can't afford to drink the wine because the wine's too expensive, so I'll have tap water.
Yeah.
You make that decision.
You do, yeah.
Your clients will make that decision for you.
Well, they already do. They already
Yeah.
do on themselves, right?
Yeah.
I used to say this to people when I used to have the shop in Marylebone. They'd say, "Oh, I'd have a client of mine, and we'd meet, say, his friend from work in the pub, and he'd go, 'How much do you charge for a haircut?' And I pay a tenner for this." And I wouldn't judge the haircut. I wouldn't say, well, because not every £10 haircut's bad at all.
No.
And I went, okay, let me justify how I charge what I charge, right? I said, why my prices are what they are. I said, how much are your shoes? Russell and Bromley, 280 quid. All right, 280 pound. How much are your socks? 15 quid. How much are your jeans? 150. How much is your belt? 50. How much is your shirt? 35. How much is the jacket you've got on? Why do you think a pair of shoes are worth £280? Why is the cheapest thing on your body your haircut?
Yeah.
Which is the first thing people notice about you.
Yeah.
If your haircut's off, they'll know. So why do you value this less than you value your underwear? I don't understand how that is even.
I'm not even sure it's always the clients, because there are clients that are paying it. You know, I charge £60 for a gent's haircut that come to me, and I think that's a real bargain. To be fair, you know, the 40 years of experience, and I very rarely get guys who've got easy hair. I'm normally solving a problem.
Yeah.
So and you're not charging 15 quid. You're not charging. You know, the clients aren't making the call. I was just really surprised by the industry.
It's the industry making the
of
calls,
how appalled. I mean, some of the phrases was, I think one was, how dare a barber assume to be worth that much?
Listen,
where's the mindset?
Yeah, but I think within any business category, there is variations and fluctuations. So if you're a barber and you don't shampoo your client's hair, you just wet their hair down. Okay, you don't offer a range of beverages. You don't. You don't offer a hot towel service, or all of those things.
Spray down, haircut, leave.
Yeah. Now, if you're shampooing someone's hair, you're talking about time. So this goes back to what I said initially. If you look at your time, like if you can do wet down and
3 in an hour rather than 2 in an hour, rather than 1 in an hour, and
correct.
Yeah.
It's down to
But I think the problem is everyone is more demanding now. Even the guys that are coming in who just want to spray down and they're much pickier about their haircuts. They're much more conscious about their haircut. They're much more aware that they want to talk about their hair and what they want to do.
Yeah.
So it does feel to me like the 10, 15 minute haircut has gone. I think you're going to struggle with that. But the £15, £20 haircut price is still existing.
Yeah, I understand where you're going. Yeah, totally.
It is a bit of a touchy subject though, because you can almost come across as arrogant if you charge more. Which we're not trying to be. The world I was in was already high anyway, so it was gonna go up for me. And I think if you start low and you don't move higher, if you start in an area that is a lower price, you're going to be capped where you are.
But you're to blame. I mean, to be fair, you more than anyone is to blame for this, because your Instagram has convinced guys that actually your barber should be able to make you look slimmer, make your hair look thicker, make you look more handsome.
I never say that.
But that's
not something I always do.
But you have. I mean, I speak to so many barbers who say how much you've shown them.
Yeah.
There are gents and there are guys looking at yours. You can see from the amount of people that are emailing you to get a haircut with you that you've instigated, that the population out there want to talk about it, want more. Your guys don't come in for a quick, short back and sides. There's more to it.
Yeah, there is. But I think that exactly what Dan was saying, no matter where, if you look at the space where you cut hair, okay, whether you're regional, central city-based, in a village, it doesn't matter. Okay, at the end of the day, you have to look at, this goes back to basic business. Understand what your costings are. If you're giving everyone a beer, that's cost you £1.
Yeah.
No matter where you're going to buy it from, a beer costs £1. You want to make a decent coffee for a client and you want to use an espresso machine, that's £1. You want to do your laundry because you're doing towels, okay, that's another 50p. So, you look at the cost. If you've got a decent product range in the salon, okay, and you want your clients to buy the product, so you're using the product, there's a cost for that.
Yeah.
So if you're only charging whatever you're charging, you have to take all that off the bottom line. And then you look at what the rent is, or how are you advertising? Yeah. So all of that has to be factored in. It's not my haircut is. Let's just use £25 as a figure, but I'm not for or against that. A haircut's £25. Out of that £25, how does that money get distributed? And how you should set your prices is around how much time you're spending on that client, what the services you're giving, and it's not about someone's haircut is better or worse than someone else. This is not about me like having to dig at someone else's haircuts. What I'm saying is what someone gets for that value for money, because people expect now a value for money. Yeah. So what am I going to get for £25, £50, £200, whatever it is totally relevant, and that's how you should. That's how we should, as an industry, be thinking about how we price. And there'll always be a market for lower prices as there will be for upper prices.
Yeah, but that's like any industry, though, isn't it?
That's exactly the same.
If you want to spend a tenner on a pair of trainers or £300,
McDonald's or going to a posh burger joint, it's the same thing.
My point really, though, if that's how it's based, that's absolutely fine. But I can't believe that shops don't have different rents, that they don't have different overheads, they don't have different costs. But you can quite comfortably walk amongst a group of barbers, and you'll find the average will be about 30 quid.
Yeah.
Even in London, even in parts of London, 35 quid. Definitely. Manchester, I've had this same conversation. Leeds, that's it. And I don't think that route that you're saying, Joe, about right, this is how much a haircut costs me, and this is how much I need to make from it, would bring out an even 30 quid. I think it's what everyone else is charging. Do
you not think it's just down to what people's perceptions they think they should charge? I felt like when I was in Marylebone, right, I felt like we were at a point where men's haircuts were going up to be the same level as a hairdresser's. I know I'm not trying to use the different terms there. What I mean is a lady salon, a men's salon. Yeah. It was almost at one point the trajectory was we were going up to meet the same amount or close to the same amount. Because I was thinking, well, why is that man over there charging 500 and I'm charging 100 when I specialise in men's and he does both? How has he valued a haircut of 500 quid? And I was amazed by it because I was like, that guy's busy all the time. And I felt like at some point there was a trajectory where, you had Murdoch opened up and they were charging X amount. Then you had Ruffians open up and they were charging X amount. Then you had Gentleman's Tonic opened up and they were having. Do you know what I mean? It was all going to a higher level, and they were doing things that we were all doing. And then all of a sudden it just went. And all we're talking about now is why a haircut should be a certain amount. Is there not a value? Should we not value our haircuts more for what we do?
That's my point.
Does society tell us we can't? Is it you're being told you can't do it because you're too arrogant and you're charging more?
Yeah, but I think it's at the end of the day, what we do is skilled.
Yeah.
Okay, and how you value your skill should denote how you think about pricing. I think that there is often a situation where, with any industry, you might sit there and go, well, actually, so-and-so's down the road, they do exactly what we do and they're charging X. So that's what we should be, or a little bit below. And at the end of the day, you shouldn't worry about what other people are doing around you. You should sit there and look, what does my business need? What is the business offering? What am I offering as a barber versus somebody else? And I think, Dan, what you were talking about, because we were part of that with Joe & Co in Soho, where we were like really pushing the ceiling on pricing. And I think what happened post-COVID was this kind of readjustment in men's and women's hairdressing, where, like, for example, I know a lot of shops now just charge by time. Yeah. So if you have a haircut, long haircuts, that's an hour and 15. Mid-length, short is an hour. We charge X for an hour. Yeah. And I know that's not necessarily hardcore within the barbering industry, but I think that's what happened with the whole kind of like with the
disparity.
Gap. So I think it kind of time. It all just got blurred. Yeah, and it just became around time. Yeah, and I don't think there's anything wrong with that model either. I think at the end of the day, there is no right or wrong in what we do in our industry.
No.
It's what suits you as an individual, as a business, or whatever. And I, for example, I've got people that I work with at Wolf that charge a lot of money that do great haircuts. But then when I'm picking my son up down in Farnham, there's a young lady down there who cuts my hair who charged me like 22 quid for a wet down haircut. Her work would stand up here all day long.
I know,
at 100
exactly,
quid a haircut all day long.
And I'm with you on that because I again, like I said at the start, it doesn't mean a £10 haircut's a bad haircut because it's not. Because some of the guys who train me are still charging a lower price, for what they do. But they train me.
I started in Margate, okay, and I worked in a barber shop, and we would do wet down haircuts and the kids after school. That's where I started.
Yeah.
I'm not, Vidal Sassoon. I've done all the courses since, but that's where I started. And we'd all stand there at 3:00 watching our watches, going, "The kids are coming next."
Yeah, I did exactly the same.
And you know what? The guys that I worked with in there were absolutely phenomenal.
Yeah, same. They're still they are still the guys who train me up and the guys I work with are still to this date for me the best barbers I've ever worked with, right? So again, it goes to show it is. I'm not trying to undersell myself here or anything, but what I mean is that the pricing structure is whatever you feel you should charge. If you feel, for me personally, I think if I want to charge more because people tell me I should charge more as well. I have people saying to me, "You should be charging £300 a haircut."
Yeah, but Dan, if you went back home and you opened up a salon there, do you think you could still go straight in?
No, not at all. Not at all.
See, if I went back to Margate, even with the CV that I've got now, do I think I could charge what I charge in London?
But you know what? Though, you could argue
there's
that
a little square mile of Margate that seems to be doing all right, doesn't it?
You could argue that, though. You could say.
I think I probably could.
You could. You could argue that and say
I'll probably get a slap though. So.
But you could say yes. But again, like you point out again, it's just a vicious circle, this, right? Because you can go, well, there's people in Liverpool who drive Ferraris, Lamborghinis. Totally. It's not. There's wealth everywhere across the board, right? So you could do that, and you could only do 4 people a day, but you're still in £400.
Exactly.
Do you get what I mean? You could do it if you wanted to.
Well, I'm really glad that we managed to make pricing another contentious episode.
I don't want to be like that. I don't want to see the comments.
I'm going to be cancelling my Instagram page after this interview.
I think we've probably reached the end of part 1. There's so many more bits that we didn't get round to, but boys, with your amount of experience, it was impossible not to bang on through that a little bit more than we planned. Thank you very much for listening. I really hope you're going to come back for part 2. I'm sure it's going to be just as good. Thank you.
Welcome to the Noble Barber Podcast. We're always looking for interesting people and interesting stories. If you know someone or you are someone with a great story that you want to share, get in touch and come and join me on the sofa. Thanks very much for listening. I hope you've enjoyed the episode and we'll see you next time.